Hi, friends. Um, I am sort of sitting today, I guess, with a kind of with maybe just a question or an awareness of what's kind of been showing up for me is just a question around, or at least hard to define what the thing is, but it revolves around creative responsibility, and which inherently sort of involves creative integrity, that sense of what are we creating, and how deep is our commitment to it? How much of myself am I offering? And I think it's, in some ways, I've been talking about this for a couple days now, sort of ever since my project here in Houston kind of has settled into a rhythm where I no longer feel like it takes a lot of my headspace to manage it. And so I'm kind of turning, my attention gets to turn in other directions, and I'm enjoying that. But there's also a kind of there's a heaviness to it, not necessarily like a heaviness in the sense of a burden to carry, but a heaviness in the sense of the question really feels significant. It feels like it's not insignificant how I answer that question. I realize I haven't articulated the question all that clearly, but if I'm kind of wrestling with what it means to take creative responsibility, and what it means to really give myself to a project, or even to an idea, I think maybe one of the reasons this is showing up is because I had a great conversation with a friend today about this project, and about the process and the piece, and it was just really wonderful to celebrate the piece, and to kind of have a really in-depth, I mean, not that in-depth, but kind of enough time to really kind of unpack what we've created together, and then also to look at where it, what it next steps, what it wants to be, what's still not happening yet, where's it going. And I think the reason why it brings me back to this other question about creative responsibility is partly because I play a role on this project, and I have a certain amount of input, a certain amount of authority, or I guess investment, but ultimately it's not, it doesn't rest on my shoulders. And that's an interesting thing to feel. Not so much that that's a problem with this piece at all. It's more of the fact that it causes me to recognize that is something that's absent from my life right now. I don't really have an active piece, an active project that does rest completely on my shoulders. And that in turn kind of creates a sensation of not quite rudderlessness, but it's kind of like I'm walking but without a clear goal in mind. And I think I'm trying to connect that sense in which is more of like a life sense with this pattern in the kind of creative domain, and acknowledge that at the same time. I'm not trying to blow it out of proportion or make it seem like there's something terribly wrong. There isn't really, but I'm just tracking the absence of that thing. It's kind of like, I have, and I even as I say this, I look at my life, and I spent some time this morning just reflecting on my life, and I couldn't help but be immensely grateful for so many just beautiful aspects of my life, and all these kind of cherished people and projects and circumstances. And at the same time, I am going, it almost feels like a weight I should be carrying, but not in the sense of like, oh, I need to go pick up a burden and compulsively carry it so that I, feel like I'm doing something. It's more of a kind of a palpable sense of my heart wants to be saying something. My heart wants to be expressing something. And my heart does express things on this project and through this project. It has a certain amount of access and agency to do so. But this brings me full circle to the question of creative responsibility, and really looking at that and kind of just deciding, well, what do I need? What do I actually need in order to have that sense that my heart really is expressing itself, right? That my heart really is giving itself to the world. And somehow, for me, there's an aspect of that that's missing. There's an aspect of that it's like inwardly I'm still kind of going, what, where is it? And I have to, concede, even as I describe that inner dynamic, I think there's probably, I suspect that stillness may be the way to go about this. I sat in meditation this morning for a nice long time and had a great qigong session too. It gave me, and I noticed that my inner psyche was craving silence, craving that just the cessation of thought. And funny enough, it then activated another memory from just a couple days ago, where I had been sitting in meditation and I felt myself. It was like I could see my mind holding on. But then I thought to myself, wait, I'm not holding on, because I could observe the holding on. I could be the observer of the holding on. So then it was like, well, who's holding on? What's holding on? And it was this subsidiary dimension of myself. It was just the mind holding on. It was just this, but the mind is great at trying to make us think, I am my thoughts. I am my emotions, right? I am my experiences. That's kind of the mind's bread and butter. And so I think, and then interestingly today, there was this sense of letting go. There was a sense of, I could still see my mind doing its thing and clinging to stuff. But the more time I sat, the more it was like the dust settled. And what shows up in that space is just a sense of my heart has something to express. And I think to express it, I need to have ownership of it. I need to have really creative ownership of it. Which doesn't negate any other roles I might play on whatever other amazing projects might come my way. It just means I've got to make that one happen too. I need that core. I need that center where I know that I'm doing it. And it reminds me of what I would say after my cabaret performances a few months ago when I was doing them regularly. When I would come out of one, I would generally feel, almost always, I would feel relaxed, and I had this sense of deep peace. And I attributed it to a felt sense of, okay, I'm doing my thing. My heart is being expressed. I am giving myself to the world. And however imperfectly, and God knows, I would be the most critical person of those performances. I'd be the first one to go in and try and kind of give myself a critical gaze, a withering critical gaze, to evaluate myself with. But that didn't matter, even though I had that mental, very much mind-based critique thing happening. And it's almost like my mind was, my mind does this thing that I've heard other people talk about as well, which is I critique myself so harshly and quickly, almost as though I'm going to beat anyone else to the punch. So no one else's critique ever even gets a chance to land, or ideally never even gets articulated, because I'm going to get there first. I'm going to be so self-critical that no one else's criticism can even be said, because I've already clarified that I understand the criticism. I'm one step ahead of the criticism. That's the game that my mind loves to play, is staying one step ahead of the criticism. But even that pretty unpleasant mental pattern didn't really matter, because I knew on a deeper level that whatever the content was that I was producing, I was following my heart. My heart was leading me. And that put me at peace. And I think, again, as I get to the end of this process and as I really start to look ahead, it's really a question of what does that look like? What is that? What am I, maybe it's going back to the cabaret in some form. I've also had the urge recently. I realized that I very rarely practice pieces with the intent to perform them. Now, this show is giving me a great opportunity to perform music, but it's and it takes nothing. I love doing this show. This is one of the most fun things to do, is to go on stage and play this thing, sing the songs. How much more fun could you possibly have? But I think it's just that subtle difference between it being myself in the role of working as part of this project, and myself as the carrier of the project, the creative, that kind of creative ownership side, and really knowing that that this is what my heart wants to say, however imperfect that may be, and letting that live. That's the thing that is really showing up for me right now, and I have to take seriously because it feels really vital. So you can probably tell I'm still working through this, but that's where I am today. Thanks for watching, people. I appreciate you. Love you very much. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.